Hello, my name is Dave Thomas. I teach 7th grade social studies at Fort Couch Middle School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today I'm going to be talking to you about using performance-based and authentic assessments really to activate higher levels of thinking, something that we've been working really hard at here at Fort Couch as entire social studies department. And I'm hoping that from this you'll have some great ideas, you'll be excited about doing these and finding ways to really help give students voice, choice, and ownership, and then also really pushing them to engage higher levels of thinking. Now, when we talk about customizing learning, there are three big buzzwords you'll hear thrown around. And those are voice, choice, and ownership. Voice meaning allowing students to express themselves with their unique skill sets and interests. This is something we're very passionate about at Aubrey St. Clair and work very hard to do, really to customize learning for the individual. Another one is choice, and that means allowing students to make choices throughout the process. This is something that's been proven by numerous educational studies to boost student interest and engagement. And that really leads us to our final one, which is ownership. Giving the student greater autonomy and responsibility over their learning, which leads to greater engagement and effort. And it's really a simple equation. The more engaged the student is, the more interested they will be in their learning, and the more effort they're going to end up putting in. And I believe that a focus upon these three skills has led to greater mastery, deeper understanding, as well as more lasting learning. Now, when we talk about this shift that we've done here at Fort Couch, it really is a gradual transition. It's a process that takes a lot of time. And we look at the old way of doing things, it really was just to take a 45 to 50 point multiple choice test. We did this for a long time, and we found that it really is not the most accurate way to gauge students' understanding and learning of content. And so our first attempt to update or make more student-centered authentic assessments made just a complete shift or a move to projects. And this quickly proved to be problematic for us. We found that without clear-cut objectives and other ways to check and assess learning, these projects lacked content and higher-level thinking. By making this complete move, completely moving away from multiple choice tests to just projects, we had missed out on some of the important things that we needed to make sure students were learning. And so our next attempt really balanced out these project-based assessments with shorter, more formative multiple choice quizzes. And this helped to make sure key information was grasped before activating higher levels of thinking. But students really had to know the information in order to effectively be able to use it. So we balanced it out. We still taught them the important skill of taking multiple choice tests. We still use those to check in on content. And this allowed students to be confident in the content, to master the content so that they could go on to really utilize higher order thinking in these project and authentic assessments. Now, when we talk about these authentic assessments and performance-based tasks or project-based assessments that we've been doing in Upper St. Clair, we really had to clearly define what we were trying to do. And we found that was really the key to establishing true customization of learning. Our main goals were really to create student choice and ownership, appropriate differentiation, and flexibility to cater to individual creativity and expression. You're seeing those three buzzwords, voice, choice, and ownership again. But we also found that in order to truly customize learning for the individual, we had to make sure it was appropriately differentiated. We had to meet them where they were at. So that was a very important thing for us. And we found that the keys with creating these authentic assessments, these performance-based tasks, was that they really had to rely on curriculum standards. It couldn't be a free-for-all. There still needs to be alignment and very clear goals and understandings and content that's being reached. There's also very, very big importance on clearly stated rubrics, especially at the middle school level when you're working with 12-year-olds. When you're going to give them lots of choice, lots of voice, lots of ownership, you need to make sure that there's still a very clearly stated rubric that they can follow as a guide. To allow them to maximize those decisions, they need to have something to help guide that thinking. And we found that rubrics did a great job of that. Finally, essential questions and a UBD structure. By having a unit that is designed with this UBD structure, we could start with the project. We could start with that final product we wanted them to reach, and then from there work backwards to make sure we addressed all the content they needed, that we taught all the skills they would need throughout the unit, and we'd have all these essential questions they were looking at, wrestling with, and answering along the way, so that they truly could then really wrestle with concepts in their final project, in their authentic assessment at the end. The bottom line for us, get students to use the information, not just regurgitate it. And so we have had the opportunity to have a one-to-one iPad initiative at our school, and that has been really great in customizing learning. For example, it gives students many possible modes of expression for these authentic assessments at the end. Here are just some of the applications that students use for these projects, for these assessments at the end. And it's never a free-for-all. Sometimes students will have presentations, sometimes they'll have papers, sometimes they'll have speaking, sometimes they will have creative representations that allow them to have more choice and to kind of pick which application they want to use. But students always have many ways they can go about creating a final product, addressing the question, completing the project, and that has allowed a lot of that voice and choice to be maximized. So our PBAs and our authentic assessments here at Fort Couch really focus upon the essential question of the unit that's being studied. Some examples of these essential questions that we then form our projects around are questions like, what does it take to win a war? In which our students look at what factors led to an American victory in the Revolutionary War, but it also gets them thinking and dialoguing on what could have happened if the colonists hadn't received the aid that they did. So it goes beyond just regurgitating facts about the American Revolution, really has them analyzing decisions and their impacts and how it changed the world. Another question, do the ends justify the means? Students in this question are looking at 3 early presidents and controversial events in their presidencies. George Washington, the Whiskey Rebellion, Thomas Jefferson, and the Louisiana Purchase, and Andrew Jackson in the Indian Removal Act. And here students are analyzing those decisions, they're weighing the pros and cons, and then evaluating the choices that those presidents made. So in this case, students are having to defend and argue their position, providing evidence to back up and support their critique of each president. Another example, how far should you go to do what is right? In this unit, students are looking at the whole issue of sectionalism, slavery, and antebellum struggles between North and South. And after learning about events like Bleeding Kansas, the Nat Turner Rebellion, and Harper's Ferry, students are then having to analyze and evaluate those events. Going beyond the facts, students are then tackling deeper issues behind the struggles. And they're then wrestling with higher level questions like, is violence ever justified? And so slavery in America is definitely a tough issue. And what I love about this question, this project, is it really lets kids question and arrive at deeper understandings about a very controversial and a very impacting event and argument in our past. Another question, how are people affected by war? Another example is the budget project. This is a personal favorite of mine. After students learn about economics and what it takes to be successful in a market-based economy, they then do this budget project where they first research their dream house, their dream job, their dream car, their dream college, and after they kind of come up with this dream life that they would love to have, they have to actually research how much everything costs. They then have this complex spreadsheet that they work through over a couple days, plugging and chugging, and most times they find that their dream life is not attainable at the 25th percentile of their salary the first couple years, which we lock them into. And students not only are learning about economics, and they're learning about things like opportunity cost and budgeting and taxes and all sorts of other crucial parts like supply and demand of a market-based economy, but they're then coming to these lasting, deeper understandings of how economics works and some personal applications to their life. We've had students come back and talk about how much this impacted them later on in their lives. We've had parents ask if they can have this spreadsheet for kids who are in college to help them with budgeting. Kids then learning about economics, but it's teaching them to go deeper with it, applying it to their lives, thinking about deeper issues, how they can take what they're learning, these concepts from economics, and see how they really play out in the real world. The results of what we're seeing here. Student engagement and retention is definitely much higher with these kinds of projects. Obviously, you want to go beyond that with higher levels of thinking, but the way that these projects are designed, the way that students have all this choice, the creativity, we're seeing this wide array of high-level work. We're seeing a lot of mastery of content being displayed, and students are really getting into these projects. This customized learning is allowing students to play to their strengths and interests, so you can have all these projects that are very unique depending on the individual, but they all come back and they still all center upon the same objectives. They all still have that final question, that essential question that they're addressing. The best part is that these higher order thinking levels that are being activated by students are really advanced. They're having to articulate arguments, they're having to back it up with evidence and research, they're getting to ask even more questions other than the question, they're looking at the implications of that question in the future. Students are really wrestling with deeper issues, making connections to old learning, making predictions on future learning, and these projects are really reaching up to higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. They're being accessed in very meaningful ways. These projects are going beyond just remembering or understanding. They start there, but they go through meaningful, complex, and open-ended essential questions, and the projects really get students to apply, analyze, and evaluate critical events in U.S. history. Students even get to the point of creating alternatives, solutions, and new thoughts and understandings about what they're learning. So here at Fort Couch, we're really excited about these project-based assessments and authentic assessments because, yes, they're learning the facts, but they're also going so much deeper with them. And the things that they're learning from really wrestling with deeper concepts and really taking it a step further, even a few steps further, is really resulting in some incredible things. And with technology blended in with the iPads, students are truly, really getting voice, choice, and ownership, and they're really going deeper and really climbing up Bloom's taxonomy. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed.